name is Gérard Desplaces. I'm the responsible at Imperva for South Europe. For this conference, we really want to highlight a use case of one of our customer rather than talking about ourselves. So I think that use cases are usually what we get to learn from the most, especially in this type of conferences, and to go further than use cases, because usually in our business line, we always try to brainstorm around our customer. But what matters to me and what matters to Imperva is to have a real relationship, a real partnership relationship. And so when we have this type of mindset as an editor, and I think that would be the dream of a lot of editors, to have the type of customers that we have and the type of customers that we are going to talk about, well, the best would be to develop products that meet our needs, because usually developers are having a lot of fun. They develop products that are very intelligent, that are very smart, but it's not always meeting our customers' needs. So this is why this experience is quite interesting. And you'll also be able to see that beyond this business part, we've also been able to save the image of our customer, of our final customer, and at the same time, we've been able to help them earn money as well. So in 2 minutes, before talking about this use case, I also wanted to give some more context about Imperva and tell you more about it, especially when it comes to cybersecurity, because usually people know us for probably the securitization of apps and our apps. I mean, we're the world leader when it comes to that. It's been 7 years now, but we are not really known for all of our solutions. So there are many solutions that we do offer that are unknown or not well known, at least so far. And then we'll get to the use case, if you'll allow me. So there are more and more companies that, because or thanks to the pandemic, they had to accelerate their transition, their digital transition. And so nowadays we ask you to work with more customers, to help more customers, but usually you have less means, less budget, or less human resources. So you have to deal and to manage the risks. And in this situation, in this current context, it's quite a tough thing to do. Usually the risks are more important because you have data that is distributed, and we can also talk about the hybrid aspect of information systems. So we're asking you to react more quickly, but usually attackers also are also using cutting-edge technologies, and they adapt very quickly as well. And so if you sum up the different transactions that we do today, well, it enables attackers to attack without being seen. So if we take the old model, the former model, especially when it comes to the information system, you had monolithic apps that were in a data center. So it was very easy to secure the application part and to secure also the different accesses. So this is the former model. Nowadays, almost everyone has implemented a hybrid system, are all using a hybrid model. So for more rapidity, but also for more flexibility, we now have those hybrid networks. So we're not all at the same level when it comes to this structure, but I mean, this is the reality. We are adapting to new technologies and so on. And quite often, we have less human resources to do more with that. So in terms of fragmentation, well, we know that this is because it's complex. And so here you have the real needs of your company. So your company needs to unify all of these application blocks to be more reactive, to be proactive, more responsive as well, more precise, and to have a sharper expertise. What we are offering at Imperva is to supervise and to unify all of these application blocks. And I'll be able to show you here on the line that basically you have, so the villains, the bad people have access to your networks without apps. And so what do? They usually go there and get the data that they want to exploit. So here we're able to secure all of the perimeter on DNS, on CDN, and then that's how we get to the securization of applications. And so here we're talking about application blocks. We have the ADP, which is a way to secure bots. This is what we'll be talking about a bit more later on. And so we get up to the data to make sure that we're able to control who gets access to what, and then to consolidate all of these events to make sure that the experts have the real base, and to make sure that we have a SOC. We usually focus on what's dangerous, and we don't focus on the 70% of noise. Because once more, human resources are getting harder to find or harder to invest on. I probably have missed a point earlier on, but in big companies, usually have more than 75 security tools that you need to manage without counting maybe all of the aspects of the management console. So then you have expertise on the alerts, etc., etc. So it's basically impossible to manage. So this is something that we're able to do now, and we're able also to offer a top quality service that goes beyond these analytical blocks, especially in terms of remediation. So Imperva is not all about WAF. So I'll move on over to the next slide, because this is not the most important. We have experts working with us, so we're working with the leaders on every single solution. That's fine, but that's not the most important part for us. The most important part is to hear from our customers and to explain to you how we've been able to establish great relationships with our customers, and how we've been able to create a vaccine thanks to these partnerships. I mean, I'm saying vaccine because we talk about vaccine every day now, currently, but this is a vaccine that that helped Amadeus to control everything that was happening. So you'll be able to see that. Usually we have some malicious bots, but in the case of Amadeus, what was interesting is that we could see transactions that seemed very legitimate, on which it's usually really hard to detect any vulnerabilities. So this is, they are legitimate transactions, but the financial impact was huge. So it could have had a really bad impact on the company's reputation, but also on the company's integrity. So then after that, I'm going to give the floor to Olivier, but please do not hesitate to come and see us at our booth. It is booth B17, and also to give us your details, because we are having a little lottery, and because there are not so many people here at this conference, your likelihood to win is higher, and we are doing a lottery to offer you a weekend visiting castles. So I'm now going to give the floor to Olivier. Thank you, Gérald. So my name is Olivier. I am the responsible for the SOC at Amadeus. So we're talking about the SOC that gets the human resources, but we also have the anti-fraud team with us. And so today we wanted to share our experience, to give you some feedback. I mean, Imperva, we are a customer of Imperva for years now, so we use a lot of their products. and they are the ones securing most of our websites and all of the websites that we provide to our customers, so our airlines. So, I mean, we took a topic that might be a bit simple as we're referring to the pandemic, but a lot of the web traffic comes from bots nowadays. And I'm not talking about robots, as in good robots that are actually quite benevolent, but I'm talking about the villains, about the bots that have very bad intentions. And so in our sector, Amadeus is a computer service company, and they usually work with airports. And so in air travel, bad bots, malicious bots are omnipresent, and they are used in a lot of different scenarios, a lot of fraud scenarios. And so web scrapping, for example, is probably number one in the travel industry, but we're not only fighting against those type of bots, bots that only do web scrapping. Most of these bots are also very hard to identify. They are able to imitate human behavior really well. And with the coronavirus, we've seen that this has increased quite a lot. So just to give you a bit more context regarding Amadeus, well, this is we're talking about a global company here that provides IT services for what we call global travel. So I'm trying to make this very easy. So we are in the world's top 10 when it comes to software companies. And when you travel, well, it is highly likely that when you're going to book your ticket or you're going to do the booking process, well, this will be dealt through our platform. So these are the figures pre-COVID. So, I mean, of course, with the COVID, you can imagine that we've had a really big impact on our activity, but we used to be at more than, at over 600 millions of bookings on our website, and we had about 2 billion passengers every year. So that was that were using our Amadeus platform.
Alors, donc ça, c'est nos clients.
So these are our customers. So the air companies, airports, travel agencies. Amadeus was created by air companies, but now we have been extended. We provide IT services to most of the travel sector actors, even also different hotels and also car hiring companies. To come back to our problem, as I said it beforehand, fraud in the travel industry is present all the time. Here you can see the life cycle for the passenger who maybe is trying to find their next destination. They are going to use computers for their next destination till they book, and maybe they change their booking or the dates, and they're going to manage their booking, they're going to take their plane, etc. So we provide solutions for each of these stages of this life cycle. And there are very many different fraud scenarios at each stage. And why the robots now? The robots are present in most of these scenarios. So the fraud, the people who do the fraud use this to implement their scenarios, their fraud scenarios. So we have to fight against these malevolent or malicious robots. We have been doing it for many years, but they have become more sophisticated, and they are changing very rapidly. And the group and people who operate these botnets clearly have increased their level of attack and complexity and sophistication. 3 or 4 years ago, well, they had very simple robots to identify, for example, a WAF. Right now, it's not possible anymore. You need very specialized tools because the robots of the 4+ generation are capable of imitating, of copying a usual user who would go to Air France, for example, website, or Lufthansa. They behave themselves very well. So it's almost impossible to make a distinction if you do not have tools which are provided by Imperva, for instance, which allow you to identify and to check and to make a fingerprint of each customer, and you realize that it's a navigator but not a human being, and it's a navigator which is driven by a botnet or a robot. So just before, and there has been another evolution I would like to explain, is that traditional or mainstream defense is presented by CAPTCHAs, but right now they don't work because there are services online which are very cheap, and the botnet operators would use them at very large scale, and they can solve the CAPTCHA. So here you can see a CAPTCHA, and which does exist actually in countries like India, where you don't have to pay much for workers. They hire people for very low salaries just to solve the CAPTCHAs for the whole day. So even in different forums, we have seen very many posts of activities around this. So just to tell you that there is a business model around these botnets, because the cyber attackers just see that they are very useful. So for example, they say, I have to bypass this, can you help me? So there are very many discussion chat lines. Why do we have so many robots in our sector? So the tariffs of the websites of the air companies, they have an actual value, and very many groups and companies just base themselves and base their own businesses on these data. So at the higher part, at the center, you can see the architecture or the ecosystem that we provide. So we have a web portal operated by the air company, and what we provide is an engine, is the booking engine. So people can do the booking. Then there are other different families of the sponsor of the robot activities. We can start with the travel agencies, and some actors in the travel sector. Even travel agencies need a lot of scrapping, so they're going to send robots on a permanent basis to see, for example, how many seats are just still there on a plane, etc. Then you have other ones, Google Flight, etc. There are very many logos. We are not blaming any of them, just to push you to understand why there are so many robots, and why do we have so many traffic of robots on the website in the travel sector. Very often, kayaks, Cascader, why don't they use an API? It's not enough. And very often, they say that they receive more accurate data if they go and look for them on a permanent basis with their robots, scrapping and scrapping. At the left-hand side, you have other solutions to provide intelligence services. So the air companies themselves contract these companies to have intelligence business services. So it's the same. They have to collect the tariffs and the prices on all the websites of the air companies. So at the lower part, you have the cyber criminals, and they use scrapping, of course. They use other mainstream scenarios or methods, and they would use For example, they would do account robbery, etc. So this is what we can see, what different scenarios and possibilities and methods. We had a partnership with Distill a few years ago. This is innovative business because 6 or 7 years ago, not very many companies were capable of identifying all these robots. Distill is considered as an inventor. At the beginning, it would work very well, but the evolution has been with a very high speed. So these last years, the robots were becoming very sophisticated, and therefore Imperva decided to take over Distill, and we thought that it was a good piece of news. As a startup, after a few years, they need to have more means, and this is what happened. And so Imperva said, well, you are fighting against the robots. Wonderful. Do you want a design partner? And we accepted. So we have been working with Imperva for the last 2 years to improve the tools. And the outcome is the Advanced Boat Protection Solution, ABP, that we use. We use WAF, DOS, CSP. So this is one of the products of this platform. It protects what we call the automated threats, and this is standardized through WASP, and in the different categories we have the takeover, scrapping, also another funny scenario is the seat spinning. Robots don't do only scrapping. That is to say, they do data theft or misuse, but they also do seat spinning. This is a specific case for the airline company's website. What does it mean? These robots generate a huge number of pre-bookings till the payment page, so we have to book on a temporary basis some seats so that the list of the air company is correct. If other people want to book at the same moment, you know that some seats are pre-booked. But of course, if we don't go after 30 minutes, if people don't pay, these places are not ticketed, as we call it, they are not confirmed, they're blocked for 30 minutes, 1 hour. So the pre-bookings are kept for example, 30 minutes, 1 hour. And in the meantime, other malicious actors in the travel sector want to bother, offer and supply, say to use robots, rather sophisticated robots. They go till the payment page. That is to say, they do as if it's a human being, and they don't do payment. And they do this on a permanent basis to block some planes. So they block it, and therefore they influence their own customers. This is a suspicious. Maybe there are small travel companies. They want to increase really their own income, and therefore they oblige some of their customers to go somewhere else. This is spinning. But we have had different incidents with our own customers, which were not happy, because some planes were half, of course, empty, and this is really a lot of cost for our customers. This is spinning. So you can see also brute forces. This happened on a booking website in Asia Pacific airline company. I cannot give you the name, of course. Unfortunately for them, fortunately for you, they didn't have Imperva. Fortunately for us also, they had another solution, a competitor of ours, but their anti-bot bot protection was not at the same level. And this brute force went through the WAF of the air company, of their own of the company themselves, and it was a Chinese botnet, and they were able to have 1 million almost record locators. So these are the references of your booking. And for some of them, they retrieved all the data of the people who had booked some seats. So this happens on a regular basis. We see this almost every day. Just to show you, so this is the result of our migration from Distill to Imperva. For 1 year, we have been working hard to put everything from Distill to Imperva. We have very many customers, very many websites, and as soon as you interact with customers, you need some time. It was rather simple, rather smooth to migrate, and it was 18 days, which is fine. And we migrated more than 50 airlines. Now we are 60, and it was almost 200 websites. And since then we have more than that. So we cover more than 1,000 websites, and only this is the airline companies. As an average, the impact was positive. That is to say, 65% decrease of the look to book. So it's the proportion of transaction or paid views, the number of dynamic requests on the website divided by the bookings. The ratio is almost 150, 200. And here, with the Distill solution and with the new robots, which were very aggressive and which would go through, some airlines had a ratio of 100,000, which is really huge. So as an average, we reduce it by 67%. That is to say, the costs have decreased as well, because any transaction involves any cost. If people just do the pre-booking but not the booking, so no money enters into your company. So also you can see the robot blocking. So 50 million. We have seen also an improvement of the performances. This is an additional benefit because of the CDN that we activated. So the response answer, the loading time sometimes has increased by 86%. Another benefit was that we blocked some DOS, which is 152 gigabytes. And usually it's 50 gigabytes, and without Imperva, we would not have been able to do so. Then you can see the look to book that has decreased for an important airline company. And here you can see the number of booking despite the COVID situation. We had very few complaints from the customers, which is very good. If you block everything, you block the robots, but here we blocked the robots that we didn't want to have anymore. And this is the magic sauce. And about the approach, it's not really something new, but it's the way the engineers of Imperva really did a refactoring, and they put in place counter attacks in order to identify and to put in place efficient methods for identifying the robots. So they do super printing. They send a JavaScript that cannot be read by the bad guys. And JavaScript is going to identify whether it's a navigator, a legitimate, for example, it's Chrome. The person who comes on the website uses Chrome or Safari. This JavaScript is going to do a fingerprint of the navigator. It's a Chrome, okay, there is nothing suspicious, or a robot which is which is being driven by a robot. They're going to check very many different items, 200, 300 items that they're going to check in the browser, and they're going to make a kind of fingerprint, and this is going to be checked. There are very many other challenges which are rather technical, but I want to focus on that. They have added another layer. It's machine learning, which is rather efficient, and you can follow the robots in a more advanced way. They're going to be more agile. That is to say, if they change their behavior, thanks to the machine learning model, these machine learning models are going to adapt themselves. They adapt themselves to the adaptation of the robots, so they can better follow the robots and do better block them as well. So this has been improved in comparison with this still. Just one element that they have improved, they added a technique which is called cyber deception, just to deceive the enemy. And this technique allows them to put variations of the JavaScript, and it's going to change every 5 to 10 minutes. So already it cannot be read by anybody, or you need a lot of work to read it. But in order to make the work harder, they change this code strip every 5 to 10 minutes. So for people who operate these robots, they have to understand all the checks. The task is going to be very, very complex. All right, machine learning, that has been improved. They can be much more efficient and to better identify all these robots. So as a summary, I can tell you that it's a success story, definitely, for us. Despite the enemies that we have to face, we were able to remedy the situation, and now the solution is much safer, more secure, because of different techniques that I mentioned. We have higher bot efficacy, and it's a full coverage. The web part, mobile part, any other channel is fully covered. Even if I have single page app that use different APIs and different modern apps that download the first page, the other ones are API call, and all of these are going to be protected in an efficient way. Even the mobile apps, we integrate an SDK, so we have the same protection, whether it is the mobile channel API or mainstream, that is to say more web channel. So a screenshot, you can see the blocked robot traffic in red, and it's much higher than the human traffic. So this is the conclusion. It's not over. This is a permanent and ongoing war. We are in the trenches all the time. We have partnership with Imperva. As soon as we see things that go through again, because the attackers have found another method to circumvent some of our methods. So we have meetings on a regular basis, almost every week, with the product teams. So we tell them we have to be careful. Now they're doing this and that. And this is what we do appreciate. we can work with the teams who are in charge of different products, so there can be some evolution in order to keep this efficiency. So here we have to still face some challenges, like just the viruses. The robots adapt themselves. You have just like viruses. So we need really methods, just like vaccines, which are broader. So this is what we have been trying to do. And for example, the capture farms, it's really a concern. Captures are being used. We thought that they were efficient against the robots. They are not efficient anymore, so we have to innovate. We have to find new methods. Maybe crypto challenge, an SMS. We try to invent new responses to block all these robots. The final aim is to break their economic or their business model. It's an economic war, actually. And the attackers don't do it because they like it. It's just because to collect data, they need it in order to feed in their own business. And if it's too expensive for them to do it, they are going to stop and we are going to win this war. That's it. I don't know. I think, yes, just in time. I don't know whether you have any question, because this is rather a very specific case. And you see that in the industrial sector, we also have to face this kind of incident and event. The way you process or you tackle this issue is different, but the tools are there. This is what I have been saying at the beginning. The partnership we have with our customers is really huge. It's extraordinary because we have different teams and meetings every single week. And this allows us to go forward in order to provide a solution which really responds to or meets the needs of the customers. For example, it's not only for ticket booking, it's, for example, in supermarkets during the COVID crisis. And there were robots looking for data which would be interesting for the competitors. They would prevent a few days beforehand, telling you, okay, this weekend we take care of you. We are going to attack you. And the whole of the supermarket was panicking and telling us, can you tell us to do this and that? So there is a huge intelligence behind it, which is really incredible. For a year and a half, we have discovered so many things. You cannot even imagine how they are going to use technology just to achieve these kind of things we are discovering. It's also exciting. Of course, this is very stressful for very many companies. I don't know whether you have any specific question. Otherwise, you can come and meet us here downstairs if you have any project, and we can develop things with you. So.
C'est bon. Ah, allez-y.
Sorry, no microphone, no translation.
Bonjour.
Hello. When you put the JavaScript code, Sorry, can you repeat your question? Ask this.
Vous avez parlé.
So you talked about the JavaScript code that you put into the web page. When? Is it around the WAF? Yes. Imperva is going to put the JavaScript code. You have to deploy the WAF, activate the ABP module for the anti-bot protection, and that's it. afterwards you have to do some fine-tuning if you want to be more accurate, to see in which path you want to apply an anti-bot policy, because sometimes the payment page is not robust enough. But at the beginning we are very strict, rather than at the end, that is to say the payment page. And yes, JavaScript is being injected. Now, this JavaScript code, do you do any detection of the mouse? How do you do this? Is it a metadata in the algorithm detection? Well, it's a good question. For Eric Imperva, expert, can maybe answer. Well, this might seem to be a good solution. There are regulatory constraints, actually. Well, it might be a good way to do it, but of course there are legal matters. Websites have to be available for disabled persons. So the behavior, so you have to have websites which are accessible for all. Otherwise, you can be sued in the United States.
On-
We're now going to have to close that session. I mean, maybe we can take one more question if you want. All right. Well, in that case, thank you so much for participating and for attending this session. Do not hesitate to come and see us at our booth and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.